Okay, this video is going to be on file processing. We should know that there are basically two types of files, right? There is a text file and there is a binary file. Now we are going to be looking at file processing for both text files and binary files in this video. And by file processing, what we mean is how to read data from a file and how to write data to a file, right? So that's what we are going to be concerned with. And the solutions that we are going to cover would include solutions in Visual Basic as well as solutions in pseudocode. In Visual Basic, when it comes to file processing, there is a very important concept which is called a stream. And a stream is basically a sequence of bytes. Okay. Now when you think of a stream, you should think in terms of some sort of a data flow that is associated with this sequence of bytes. So you have a sequence of bytes, but most likely it's going to be transferred from one place to the other, right? For example, because we're going to be doing file processing, it is possible that there's a file in the hard disk drive, right, and there's an array in the RAM. So this is our array in the RAM and this is our file in the hard disk drive. Okay, so when you think of this concept of stream, there's a sequence of bytes that is now going to flow from this file to the array in the RAM, right? So this time the sequence of bytes, you can think that there is some sort of a transfer involved with streaming. So the sequence of bytes got transferred from the file in the hard disk into the RAM. And you can also imagine a situation where there is data in the RAM and we want to transfer that data to the file that's in the hard disk. So in this case, that sequence of bytes is going to be streamed to the file, right? So effectively what we are going to be studying is file streaming, right? So in Visual Basic we are going to be dealing with file streaming, which involves transfer of a sequence of bytes. So I should say transfer of a sequence of bytes to a file and from a file. So to and from a file. So file stream we can think of as a transfer of a sequence of bytes to a file and from a file. Okay, just a side note before we proceed further. Can you think of some other situation where a sequence of bytes gets transferred from one place to the other? Well, I'm sure you've heard of the word video streaming, right? For example, over the internet, right, you have the YouTube server, right, and this is your computer, right, and this video which is stored somewhere on the hard disk of YouTube is going to be streamed. This sequence, it's going to be streamed as a sequence of bytes. So this file which is lying on the hard disk in YouTube is going to be transferred as a sequence of bytes across the network to your computer. In this case we call this a network stream. We call this a network stream. So now the sequence of bytes is getting transferred over the network from the YouTube server to your computer. Well, this is beyond our course, so we are not going to be dealing with network streams, but Visual Basic does deal with network streams also. Now for file streams, Visual Basic provides a class that is called file stream, right? So this is a class, right? We've done object oriented programming, right? And we know what classes are all about. So file stream is a class. So when we want to deal with files in Visual Basic, this is the class that we're going to be using. Okay, so the first thing that we need to set up would be a file stream. Now let me just quickly write down the operations that we can perform on a file stream. So what are the different operations, right? So let me just write operations here. So what are the different operations that we can perform on a file stream? Well, we can read from a file stream, we can write to a file stream, and finally there is something called seeking. And by seeking we mean that we can query, we can search, or we can ask a question and find out where our cursor is in the stream. So if this confuses you, just think of when you think of a stream as a sequence of bytes, there are so many bytes, right, that are stored, right? And our cursor, for example, we were trying to read from a file, so we've already read this portion of the file, right? We've already read this portion of the file. So our cursor is positioned right now at this point. So if we want to find out at some stage where we are as far as reading a file is concerned, and we want to locate the position of our cursor, then we can do that through some built-in operations that are provided in file stream. For example, if our cursor, if we start reading and if we continue reading, at this point our cursor has reached the end of the stream, right, the end of the sequence of bytes that we're going to study. If our cursor was positioned here at the very start, then we would be at the start of the stream. So we can actually we can find out where our cursor is through some built-in functions and through some built-in procedures that are provided in file stream. So in Visual Basic, when it comes to text files, right, for text files, if you want to read from a file stream, then we are going to be using this class called io.streamReader. Okay, and if you want to write to the file stream, we're going to be using this class called io.streamWriter. So a stream writer would enable us to write a sequence of bytes on the file stream, and io.streamReader would enable us to read sequence of bytes from a file stream. And in case of a binary file, in case we have a binary file, right, in case we have a binary file, we are going to be using a binary reader to read a sequence of bytes from the binary file, and we are going to be using a binary writer to write a sequence of bytes to the binary file.